The Vancouver Canucks trade talk conversation has just gotten a lot more interesting. Because what I wanted to do was kind of go over a holistic view as to what a lot of Canucks fans are talking about, what a lot of analysts are talking about, some of the names that have been tossed out there, as well as some extra names, a little bit of a Western Canadian flavor on that, because it does get a little bit more interesting if you just go a little bit east of BC. So, the Vancouver Canucks, I'd say the biggest thing people are talking about in regards to their trade situation happens to be defense. Goaltending? Well, you can't really trade for a goaltender right now. And you have Thatcher Demko waiting in the wings. He's going to come back soon, and he's probably going to be all right. Forwards, the Canucks have enough of those. They've got a lot of good forwards on their team. They're very happy with the guys they have. Maybe not necessarily with the effort they put in 100% of the time, but the names are there. It's just on defense, I think the Vancouver Canucks management might have underestimated the value that guys like Ian Cole and Nikita Zadorov brought to the lineup, not insinuating that the team should have overpaid to keep those guys and not sign guys like Vinny Desharnais, for example, but it is an idea that you have to acknowledge. The team was better defensively last year. This year, some of the guys have been less than ideal. So, let's talk about trade targets once again. The past few days we've been talking about one particular name on Pittsburgh, a left-handed defenseman by the name of Pettersson, whose first name is not Elias. There was a conversation that we had a few days ago that talked about him and the Canucks as well as the Oilers. That was a pretty big discussion because a lot of people in the Western Canadian side of things are talking about him as an option. But I wanted to turn your attention to this article published in The Province by Patrick Johnston earlier 2 days ago. Canucks Coffee. Aim higher than Marcus Pettersson. The Penguins defenseman would be a fine addition as a trade target, but there still are bigger fish to chase. So, link is going to be in the description if you want to go ahead and read this yourself, but we're going to take a look at some of the more juicy parts of this article, published by PJ, and present them here as a video commentary topic in this video. This is where PJ writes about how Marcus Pettersson is said by many to be high on many teams' lists. Plenty have looked at the Canucks, their obvious need on defense, and their ever-swelling salary cap space. Pettersson, some think, is a great fit. I'm here to tell you that he is a good fit, but there actually are better fits out there. Pettersson's main drawback is he's only average at breakouts, and what the Canucks really need is to add another defender who is especially adept at moving the puck up the ice and making outlet passes. Rasmus Anderson is one such player, so is his teammate, MacKenzie Weegar. Weegar is the kind of player you trade for because your window is now. The Canucks' window, let's be clear, is now. He's committed long-term, 6 years beyond the season into his late 30s, but he is a great player right now. So with this, I wanted to go out there and talk about these two names. We have discussed Marcus Pettersson, we have talked about Rasmus Anderson, but we have not discussed Weegar in a detailed video just yet, so I wanted to briefly go over Rasmus Anderson before fully diving into the MacKenzie Weegar conversation, because Weegar, I think, would be the best possible addition for a Vancouver Canucks team right now. Rasmus Anderson, sure, you can say that his point production might be a little bit more superior than what you're getting out of MacKenzie Weegar, but I do think that Weegar provides so much more than what it is that Rasmus Anderson has. I mean, Anderson's first on the Calgary Flames in points right now. Let's not discredit that. He's got 11 points in 18 games. Weegar has 8 points in 18 games, but that is just point production. If you go over to Rasmus Anderson, his profile, 28 years old, 6'1", 203, right-handed guy signed till the end of 25-26, making $4.5 million a year. Anderson, I'd say, is a bit more mobile. I'd say that he's a little bit more poised in the offensive zone. I'd say that he positions himself well and he's got more playmaking this year. But Rasmus Anderson does not bring the same intangibles that a guy like Weegar does. And to be clear, I'm only talking about these guys in a one versus the other capacity because that's the way the article phrases it, and it's kind of the way I think Canucks fans would prefer to talk about potential trade targets. So we can't really get multiple. Because if it were up to me, I mean, bring Weegar and Anderson over to the Vancouver Canucks. That'd be amazing. Replace that third pairing of Desharnais and whomever else. You toss Soucy down there to the 7th D spot, and you give a whole bunch of ice time to Hughes, Hronek, Bronstrom, Weegar, and Anderson. That would be fantastic. That'd improve the decor so much. But of course, you know, That'd be kind of impossible to do. Money-wise, you can make it work, but no way value-wise would you ever get something like that to go down. But aside from Rasmus Anderson, his offensive potential and his reliability, I do think that MacKenzie Weegar more so fills what the Vancouver Canucks would be looking for in a better capacity. Now, I'm biased because I have Weegar on my fantasy team. He has been a monster, but a common trend amongst fantasy hockey owners and players is that MacKenzie Weegar in category leagues is always one of the top guys, consistently. Even in my league, while MacKenzie Weegar doesn't have as many points that a guy like Rasmus Anderson does, he is still 45th overall in my league out of the 700 whatever NHL players that exist in the Yahoo Fantasy database. This is because Weegar, while he doesn't necessarily score as many points, he gets pucks on goal, he's physical, he blocks a hell of a lot of shots, and he is one of the most reliable defensemen in the league in just being a defenseman, a defensive rock, whose offensive role isn't necessarily up to snuff like Rasmus Anderson's is, but whose overall presence on the blue line is maybe like a hybrid of Carson Soucy and Ian Cole. Now, Weegar is not a big dude. He's only 6 feet, 201, right-handed guy, 30 years old, signed on till the end of 2031, making $6.25 million. But there's a reason he's making $6.25 million. He is that reliable, and I don't think many Flames fans would go out there and say that Weegar, of all people, is overpaid, quote-unquote. The contract honestly justifies the caliber of impact that he has. Last year, Weegar had 52 points in 82 games played, so this season he is on pace for a little bit less than that, at 8 points in 18, but he is still very, very solid, very reliable. He does everything he needs to do. If he gets that offense back up like he did last season, he had 20 goals last season, by the way. If he's able to do that again, that's nuts. He outscored Rasmus Anderson last year by a pretty significant margin. What is that, 13 points and by 11 goals? So, yeah, Weegar does have that capacity to be more than what he is right now in terms of his offensive productivity, but even without that, he is still one of the best defensively minded, rock-solid D-men in the league. That price is priced out for a reason, and the Vancouver Canucks are not going to be able to get a guy like MacKenzie Weegar by just shelling away some extra scraps. They would have to go top prospect, first rounder, maybe even an extra defenseman who is on the roster already to make the money work in order for this trade to go through. Let's say it's like, I don't know, MacKenzie Weegar for Vinny Desharnais, plus a top prospect like Tom Willander, plus maybe a first-round pick, and then maybe the Canucks send over another contract that is a little bit expensive or beefy so that the money balances itself out. And, like, at that point, you're getting into some pretty big territory as to what multi-player trades do exist, but the Vancouver Canucks have not necessarily strayed away from that. They did the same thing last year. They traded for Elias Lindholm. They traded away a bunch of stuff to get that done. This is a similar molded kind of trade with the exact same team, too. Honestly, now that I think about it, like, the Calgary Flames last year, their decor was crazy good. Like, before all the trades and everything, Hanifin, Zadorov, Weegar, Anderson, Tanev, and, like, whomever else. Like, who cares if you have Oliver Shillington as your last guy? You've got Weegar, Anderson, Hanifin, Tanev, and Zadorov. What a crazy decor that was. How the hell did the Calgary Flames not find success last year? Anyways, I want you to let me know your thoughts in the comments section below. If you're a Canucks fan, if you're a Flames fan, what are your opinions on the idea of acquiring Rasmus Anderson or MacKenzie Weegar instead of a Marcus Pettersson? Anderson Pettersson is an interesting look, but replacing that conversation entirely with Weegar, who is older, whose contract goes on for longer, and who is more expensive, but in my opinion, who is better, what are your thoughts on that? If you give Weegar 25 minutes a night, he is honestly fine. This is the kind of player that can handle that workload whilst producing maybe even a 20-goal clip if you're lucky. He has focused a lot more on his defensive hockey this year, which I think is probably a good thing for Vancouver if you were thinking about that particular aspect about it, because with Hughes and Hronik potentially being the offensive guys, and okay, you can kind of do whatever you want with the rest of the decor. Add in Eric Bronnstrom and his offensive touch too. You don't really need 20 goals out of MacKenzie Weegar if you get him, but of course, it'd be better to have 20 goals than to not. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Article is going to be linked in the description if you want to go ahead and read this yourself. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.